All right, so I told y'all we were going to talk about politics, even though I didn't really want to. But we have one of the best guests, and that is Dr. Nathaniel Cogley with Tarleton State University. Dr. Cogley, happy Halloween. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to ask you, with today's vote, which was obviously a very important thing today, I think the tally was 232 to 196. What happens next?
Well, thanks for having me back, Roxanne, Zach, and Davis. So what happens next is they're going to continue, basically this authorizes a continuation of what's already been going on. And we can think in terms of 3 goals that they might have, and this is going to advance 2 of them, but not the third. So this is going to advance their political narrative for the upcoming election. The Republicans were complaining that there had been no floor vote to authorize an impeachment inquiry, and that the Speaker Pelosi unilaterally couldn't do such a thing, that it needed to be supported by a majority of members. So this will help the Democratic narrative in the politics of it. Second, there's this back and forth between the president's team and these committees on executive privilege and whether or not they need to testify. And if past precedent is a cue, the courts kind of care whether or not the House took a vote or not. The one thing this does not advance at all is actually moving towards a conviction and removal in the Senate. As we see, this vote was very partisan in nature. It did not have any Republican support. And if you're going to get a conviction and removal in the Senate, you need to make inroads with the Republican Party, because the threshold in the Republican-controlled Senate is not just a majority, but 2/3. And so this does not get us any step closer towards conviction and removal, but it does help Democrats in their political framing and also in a court battle over executive privilege.
Well, this is Davis Rankin. Given that Democrat leadership is not stupid, can you explain more what the benefit is of appearing to be so partisan and, in my view, unfair, closing off some of these proceedings to Republicans?
Not some of them, all of them.
Well, at least all of them so far. And then they know it's not. I assume they know or believe that it won't get through the Senate, so they're going to impeach him, and then he's going to be absolved.
Well, I think they view actual control of this process is more important for their optics than the appearance of a bipartisan coalition, because now they're going to be able to control witnesses and subpoenas and in private testimony the redactions that take place. The ranking member can, which is the Republican member on these committees, could request something, but the chair has to approve, and then they can appeal to the broad committee, which is controlled by Democratic votes. So they're going to be able to control this, and that is important for optics too. What is actually, who's allowed to testify, and what's going to be subpoenaed, and what's going to be redacted.
Is this the way it's been done in the past?
What's that?
Is this the way it's been done in the past 2 times in the 20th century?
No, absolutely not. So what the Democrats are saying, well, these rules are better than what Clinton had. So Clinton was investigated by Ken Starr, an independent investigator, nominated by a D.C. appeals court. So the Clinton scenario, whatever formal rules were in place, were not. The committees didn't do the investigating themselves. Ken Starr produced a report, and then the House prepared impeachment charges based on the report from an independent counsel.
All right.
So it's not the Clinton situation was not at all what this is happening. If you remember, the House was very patient with this Mueller report, right? They were going to let the independent investigators produce the report, and that just yielded nothing for them to go with. And here they're not letting an independent counsel do the investigating. They themselves on the committees are doing the investigating.
Are they doing this are they playing to their base on this? Or are they playing, the Democrats, or are they playing to the larger populace? Because, again, you don't have to like President Trump to say things have been stacked against him. And if they have the whip hand on who gets to do what kind of the information flow, well, it's going to be very one-sided.
Well, certainly the strong Democratic districts, that sort of Democratic base, wants to move forward on this, and it's appeasing to those heavily Democratic districts. In these swing districts where maybe a Democratic representative is in a district Trump won, they're going to be able to fine-tune that all they voted for here was an inquiry to get to the truth.
Right.
And they didn't actually vote for articles of impeachment to send it to the Senate. We haven't seen that vote yet, and I'm not so sure there is majority support for that yet. That would be a nice way for a member to kind of go in the middle to say, I supported inquiry but not actual trial. Yeah, so we haven't seen that actual vote. What we have seen is 2 Democratic members from districts Trump won vote no on this. They don't even want to go down for an inquiry vote on this. And you imagine if you actually went formal articles of impeachment, more of them would defect because they're in districts that Trump won. The district loves Trump. And the reason they won last time was in midterm election, Trump wasn't on the ballot. And you can imagine Trump supporters are going to come out stronger when Trump is on the ballot, and that could hurt the re-election chances.
Does this give the opportunity to Republicans to open up their own investigation into certain things?
Well, they can, but they have to do that through the Senate. So they already control the Senate and the Senate Judiciary Committee and all the relevant Senate Intelligence Committees and all that stuff. So they already have control over there. But the other thing is the Republicans also have the Attorney General's office. So we already hear about this investigating the investigators. Why did the whole Russian collusion thing happen? So the Republicans have 2 tools. They have the Senate, but they also have the Attorney General's office. Yeah.
Joining us on 710 KURV is Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, who teaches political science at Tarleton State University, talking about, the Democrats push impeachment rules package through the House. Chamber's first formal vote in a fight that could stretch into the 2020 election. The tally was 232 to 196. Last we spoke, Dr. Cogley, we talked about how, or I think you mentioned that we thought, I agreed with you, that this was all just political theatrics into trying to find dirt on President Trump that they can use against him in 2020. That they didn't really want to impeach him. Have you changed your mind on that? Do you really think that's what they want, is to get him out of office now before 2020 election?
Well, they can't get him out. I mean, they're not going to have votes in the Senate. So they still haven't brought articles of impeachment. So now they're just doing a floor vote on what they've already been doing. They're able to say, well, our inquiry now has a floor vote. So they still haven't moved to actual articles of impeachment. I'm still skeptical. So there's 2 trains of thought here. One is that what they're actually, a goal for them in the framing is just to get a majority vote in the Senate so that they have that narrative, a majority of senators voted to impeach, and not actually remove, because actually conviction removal is 2/3, not a majority. But if they had a symbolic majority vote in the Senate, they could use it. I'm skeptical. Right now they've been so concerned about controlling this, and once they go to an actual vote on articles of impeachment, they put these Democrats from Trump districts in a very tough vote when control of the House is a big deal. And then once they send to the Senate, they lose total control. I mean, the Senate rules are going to empower the president to totally defend himself, shoot holes in the argument. So I am skeptical. So we see in the news like we're headed towards a real impeachment vote on articles of impeachment. I just keep wondering, why would she do that? Why would she hand control over to the Republican Senate where the rules will be totally different? They're going to totally lose control, totally lose the narrative. And I think the actual closer we get to the election, the more ridiculous this whole process becomes. You're going to vote to impeach someone when the election is only months away. So I've always been skeptical. People aren't making that prediction like I am, but I'm thinking the longer they can drag this out, the more they can dig. And then finally, at the end of the day, they could censure him and then say, well, we'll take the high road, let the people decide. I just don't know why she'd hand control to the Senate, even though people are saying she will. But you hear like already rumors how they were going to do it by Thanksgiving. Now they're not going to be able to do it by Thanksgiving. Now there's going to be a court fight over executive privilege. You just see a number of things to where they want to indicate that that's their intention to go to articles of impeachment vote, but they'll have a number of tools to say why they need to keep dragging this out.
All right. I wish we had more time, but we got to go. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. That was Dr. Nathaniel Cogley, who teaches political science at Tarleton State University, our guest on 710 KURV.